Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better day. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. Your energy. That's right. I'll give myself. Only you can make the change. I'll give myself. Your energy. I'll give myself. Shine so bright from darkness to light. Hey, 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 hey. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it won't seem way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Hey guys, can you hear me? All right. Something's going on with my mic. All right, welcome. This is Alchemizing Energy, and we are going to get into how IFA is not just a tradition built in just only Africa. This thing expands just even beyond Africa. It goes all throughout, and we're gonna also get into. I have an interview coming up at 5:30 with Neptali. But real quick, I was going to play this video. We're going to talk about IFA in other countries. In what? Transylvania, Hungary. So I want you to check out this interview that I think is a really interesting interview. And we're going to talk about this because I think that when we talk about African traditions, people have no idea just how far it reaches. Let's go.
Obvious, but not to worry. That's really the source of my inspiration. Certainly, I was really blessed in Ode Ramo to have them connect me with an ancestral spirit that has been very helpful in my training and teaching. And sometimes, if I get too far astray, he pops in and reels me back.
I should. I should.
Okay, I tell you.
We really appreciate you joining us, Bobby. This is an honor for us. We
read
all of your books.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we read all of your books. We follow you, so yeah.
So if you read all my books, then you're ready for a quiz.
we are another time, but we are definitely.
All right.
We want you to introduce yourself to the family. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you do in the world.
Yeah, okay, it's good. Listen, my birth name is David Wilson. I was given the name Wolfal Okun Fatumbi in Ode Ramo in 1989, almost 35 years ago now. The name Wolfal Okun Fatumbi means the mystery at the bottom of the ocean is born again. If you think about that name, and the mystery at the bottom of the ocean is that we all come from a single interaction between the bottom of the ocean and Ogun. In other words, it's our common heritage. It's our common mother and our common father, which means that everybody on the planet is interrelated, interconnected, and part of one family. And I think the more that we're able to internalize that, believe that, and act accordingly, I think the better off it is for everybody. So that's not really a full introduction. So what I studied comparative religion in UC Santa Barbara. I was really blessed to study with the late great Paul Tillich, who in Christian circles is kind of like Elvis. He created the curriculum for what I would call liberal Christian theological dialogue. He was the first person Hitler kicked out of Germany, and he came to America. He's 50 years old, learned English for the first time. His English is impeccable. He influenced both my understanding of how to analyze liturgical religious words from any tradition. He also he was really responsible for my style of writing. If you know me, I'm a little bit laid back and I like to have fun and tell tall tales and stories, but my writing style is a little formal, so sometimes people expect me to be more like the way I write. But I really was influenced by Tillich, who his style was very simple. He'd define a word and then show how the word unfolds and then show how it relates to the bigger scheme of things. And that's been mostly what I've done throughout my career. Before devoting, let's say, full time to IFA, I worked for criminal defense attorneys. I did trial preparation investigations. I worked on a lot of very high profile cases. People hate it when I say it, but you know, a defense attorney, you defend the bad guys because they you know, they deserve an honorable defense. I defended Sirhan Sirhan, James Earl Ray, Arthur Bremer. I defended all the Black Panther cases in Oakland, Eldridge Cleaver, Bobby Seale, Huey Newton. And I have to say, as a result of that experience, I got really disillusioned with the justice system. You know, growing up, I was a firm believer in the Constitution and the law as an equal arbitrator. Things got more and more apparently corrupt as I worked more and more in the system. I actually, believe it or not, was part of the first team hired to investigate the Watergate burglary. Congress hired me and 5 others to find out what happened. We found out what happened, and then as soon as we told them, they fired us because they didn't want that cat out of the bag. So that was not good. And they spent the next 3-4 years pretending it was all about something else. So that's a long story, but. So, you know, I actually was fortunate to be able to live in Mexico for 5 years after leaving legal work, and was really blessed there to both study with the shamans in Mexico, but also Mexico's got over 1,000 pyramids. Most people don't realize it. It's really, the landscape is rich with just ancient monuments, most of which haven't been documented. And it's like, ooh, what is this? And people would say, oh, that's the pyramid. I said, yeah, I can see that, but what is it? I mean, this is odd. You know, so, you know, that sparked my curiosity. The other thing I think is probably important in my story is in, I think it was 1971, I was blessed to be initiated in my ancestral lineage. My ancestors come from a part of Eastern Europe that was originally in Hungary called Transylvania. Everybody laughs and makes jokes and vampires and dragons, but you know, that's actually a very noble tradition. The word vampire means medium in the Hungarian. The vampires were like the priestesses of the ancient religion, and Drakal is the Hungarian word for dragon. So the dragon monarchy had vampires as the mediums to support the monarchy. It's actually the oldest monarchy in Europe, and it was a serious, and still is actually, threat to the kings and queens that are anointed by the Pope. And so there was a long history of trying to denigrate the dragon tradition. You understand? So we get all kinds of silly horror stories about Transylvania. But the truth is, it was one of a half a dozen, maybe a dozen places around the world where a legacy of a golden age in a global culture before the what's called the Lesser Dryas, or the flood of 12,000 years ago. Much of that information was preserved in Transylvania because it's got the highest mountains in Eastern Europe. So the thing that's interesting about that is the Cappadocian Mountains. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but if you Google search it, you'll see the tallest mountain. On the top of the highest mountain in Transylvania, there is a statue of a sphinx. And if you go from the top of that mountain and walk straight down the mountain into Bosnia, you will see a pyramid complex that's identical to the complex in Giza. Now, that's a history that's not often talked about, but for me, when I was initiated into the dragon tradition of what's called the Fenius lineage, it's actually a hereditary society. The Fenius in dragon culture is the same as Ifa. They're the priests that anoint the kings and do divination and like that. So when I was initiated, I was told that I needed to go to Africa to learn more about my own culture, you know. And at the time I thought, well, that's goofy. I'm just hallucinating here. This can't be right. That's not good, right? So I kind of kept that to myself. But 20 years later, when I went to Ode Ramo and was initiated, the very first thing that the Arabah said to me is, at my Ita, when they were doing the divination for my life's work, they said, take an offering to the home of your grandfather and thank him for bringing you here. It's like, okay, now you got my attention. I mean, that just can't be a coincidence. But the thing that was even more astonishing, my ancestors were keepers of what had come to be known as the Grail mysteries, and the kind of focused, the Odu for Hungarian Ifa is the stories of the Holy Grail and King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Those stories are actually descriptions of rituals and metaphysical principles, so that my ancestors sat in a circle around a stone that was above an underground waterway, and their prayers were then taken out through the land to fertilize the land. I mean, the Horn of Plenty, that was the point of the Grail myths. So on my second trip to Nigeria, Araba Adesanya Woyede took me to Ile Ife, and he said, I want to introduce you to some people. So he introduced me to the Emishe. That's Yoruba for a messenger. The Emishe is a group of 16 Awos who live in the compound of the Oni, or the king of Ile Ife, and they pray for Ifa worshippers every day. They get one day off, but every day around the clock, they do divination to see what Odu is affecting the community at large, and they do prayers for that. And they do those prayers sitting around a stone above an underground waterway. It's the exact same technology as practiced by my ancestors. They're just speaking a different language. And the truth is, the language is not all that different either, because linguistics doesn't lie. We get a lot of historical information that's just nonsense, but linguistics doesn't lie. The Kalderash language of ancient Transylvania is the mother tongue of Sumerian. Hello, you understand? Sumerian then is the mother tongue of Hebrew, all right? Or more specifically, the mother tongue of Ge'ez, which is the liturgical language of Ethiopia. Which predates Judaism. Hello?
You know what? I don't have to play this. We have the actual Baba here. Welcome. I had a conversation with you this morning. I was so fired up that I found your video, and I said, I want to let people.
Listen, I thought you were talking about another video. We'll talk for a little bit. That video that I saw as I came on, that's fine. That's worthy of public consumption. Sometimes I get a little fired up and a little ornery, and I don't want to cause controversy. Everybody's entitled to their opinions.
I didn't play the one that we had.
Oh, see, now you got me all confused. That's all right. I'm here.
No, I showed you. I sent you the video in the back, when I was playing. You didn't look at it. Don't play. I'm like,
listen. I'm going to make two brief apologies. I'm really busy today, and in a few months I'll be 80 years old, and I get very, let's say, distracted. Be nice. Let me introduce myself a little bit so we can be on the same page here for your listeners, because I look forward to speaking to them and having a conversation. All right, can we do that? Can I introduce myself a bit?
Definitely. Here you're on full screen. Your Summer Jam. Go ahead.
All right. So 38 years ago now, I went to Ode Raymond and was blessed to be initiated into IFA by Araba Adesanya Woyede, the chief IFA priest for Ode Raymond, Ogun State. I was blessed to be able to go back to Africa 6 times and study. And what I realized real soon, and what really was a blessing, is that in IFA, the 10-year-olds teach the 8-year-olds. The 12-year-olds teach the 10-year-olds, and so on. And so I realized that I was a beginner. So the first 3 trips that I made to Africa, I never spoke to anybody more than 12 years old. And I was able to write 3 books based on those conversations. So, I'm probably not old enough to remember, but back in those days, it was generally believed in the diaspora that IFA no longer existed in Africa, and I went there and discovered that wasn't true. And not only that, I discovered that they knew a lot of stuff that I felt that we didn't know in the diaspora, which is not hard to understand given the circumstances of the faith coming to this part of the world. And so I was excited, but that's because I'm kind of an idiot. Not everybody was as excited as I was about that. And there was a lot of effort to discredit what I learned and what I was saying. And that's, I guess that goes with the territory. But for me, the key point was this. There's about maybe a half a dozen efforts to write our oral scripture in English and translate it from Yoruba and present it for those people that are devotees of the faith. I want to say this. I will get fired up about this. The translations are terrible. I think they're deliberately deceptive. And once I realized that, I have spent a lot of time and effort to try and bring those texts to devotees in a way that's more consistent with the ancient wisdom of the ancestors. I'll tell you the moment in time when I really had an epiphany. My first book was called Iwa Pele, and Yoruba language is based on allegiance. What that means is a liturgical word is created by stringing a sentence together and then eliminating the vowels and making a word. So when you put the vowels back in, the meaning of the word becomes very, very clear. So the example that really changed my life, I think, and made me a serious student of Yoruba allegiance, the liturgical Yoruba language. I wanted to write something in my book about a ritual called IFA Yabale, which is a ritual done in Ogboni where men and women settle disputes based on gender. And if you look at the word Ifa Yabale, it's clearly an allegiance of Ifa Yeye Baba Ile, which if even a rudimentary understanding of Yoruba language, it's clear that that translates to the wisdom of the fathers and the mothers of the earth. And so I thought, oh, that's clear enough. Let me go to the dictionary and read their translation, make sure I got it correct. So the dictionary definition I memorized because it really blew my mind. The dictionary defined Iwa Pele as this. Are you ready, Ia? Are you sitting down? You want to?
Yeah, I'm sitting down. All right, let's go.
Yeah, put your bungee cord on because this will blow your mind. The translation in the Yoruba English dictionary for Ifa Yabale is the ascension of our Lord and Master Jesus Christ to sit at the right hand of God our Father. And I said to myself,
what?
Yes. I said, sorry, not buying it. So from that point, there you go. Yes, exactly. Ifa Yabale. So Ifa.
So Ifa Yabale means. Say it again.
Ifa Yabale, as I translate it, means Ifa means wisdom. Baba is short for Baba. Ye is short for Yeye, which is a endearment for mother, and Ile means either house or earth. So Ifa Yabale, as a ritual for gender disputes, clearly means the wisdom of the fathers and the mothers of the earth. I mean, there's no doubt about it in my mind. And but I'm saying that now, be clear, everybody's going to go to the dictionary and they're not going to find that translation. I'm talking about the first Yoruba English dictionary, which was put together by a man named Jonathan Crothers, who was an African-born Episcopalian priest, who clearly, as I went through his definitions, was translating Yoruba terms to reflect his Christian beliefs. Now, I want to say without fear of contradiction that the teaching of Oromila is not the same as the teaching of Jesus. They're very, very different. And I'll give you another example that really changed things for me. And people are going to fight me on this, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to share with you my interpretation of the word ebo based on 40 years of experience. The word ebo does not mean sacrifice, never has, never will. It has no context in terms of Ifa sacred scripture. The prophet Oromila never advocated sacrifice, never spoke about sacrifice, and certainly didn't use the word ebo to mean sacrifice. The word ebo means offering. All right. Sacrifice is a Christian term, and it has a meaning in the context of Christianity and the life and times of Jesus, but it doesn't mean anything. Sacrifice, the word sacrifice, has no place within Ifa theological, liturgical scripture. It's simply not reflected in the text itself. Now, you can argue with me and we can disagree and we can get all excited and worried and call each other names. But if you're going to make the point that it means sacrifice, you need to show me the text that explains that. And I'm telling you, I've spent 40 years looking for it and I've never found it. So if you can find it, good luck and thank you. Now, you have to be clear, too, that there are two distinct forms of Odu Ifa. There was the form developed in Nigeria that's 10,000 years old. There's another recent expression of Odu Ifa that was developed by Lukumi practitioners in Cuba in 1946, which is very, very recent and which is very reflective of the Catholic theology that is popular on the island. Those are two distinct, different texts. Very little of anything is the same in both those texts, and they reflect a different theological perspective. Now, I respect the right of anybody and everybody to believe what they want, worship who they want, use language any way they want. But if you're claiming to be part of a tradition rooted in the ancestral wisdom of our ancient Yoruba African ancestors who practice IFA in what we now call Nigeria, that's a specific set of texts, a specific language, and the verses in those Odus have a specific format, which does not appear in the which are largely just Spanish versions of Odu without the Yoruba. And again, that's okay, but be clear it's different. So to superimpose one or the other, or to say my interpretation is wrong because it's African-based and not diaspora-based, I think is unfair and disingenuous. Now, we can talk about those differences. We can talk about whether we think it's good or bad, the differences. We can talk about what we think is more reflective of reality, let's say. But I think we should talk about that and remain friends. That's my point. We don't have to get all jacked up about it and all heated about it. I'll take an example of how that didn't happen. My first book was called Iwa Pele, and it was my contention and is my contention in that book that Ifa is based on Iwa Pele. The word Iwa Pele is often translated to mean good character. It actually does not mean that literally. The word Iwa Pele from the Elysian Iwa Ope Ile literally means I come to greet the earth. The word Iwa, the word Wa means come. Iwa means the coming with a capital T. The coming means is a reference to reincarnation. The coming from the invisible realm, Orun, to the visible realm, Ia. The coming to greet, Ope means to greet, and then Ile, the earth, to greet the earth. So what does that even mean? In traditional Yoruba culture, we only greet our elders. We greet our teachers. Our teachers don't go chasing after their students or their children to greet them. That just doesn't happen. So there's a cultural implication from the word Iwa Pele that we come to greet the earth, to learn to live in harmony with the earth, to learn to understand the metaphysical principles incarnated by the earth, and this is the big and to learn how to live in harmony with each other. So there was a lot of argument back in the day. Well, no, good character is Iwa Rere. No, Iwa Rere from the Elysian Iwa Ire. When you have a word in Yoruba where you repeat the word, you're talking about the metaphysical origins of that word. So Iwa Rere means I come in good fortune, meaning I come as a good and blessed person. Iwa Rere means innocence. Innocence is different than Iwa Pele, meaning good character that I develop. So according to Odu Ifa, very clearly in what I would call Ifa psychology, children are born in innocence, and then in the process of growing up, we engage in what Ifa calls Ori Baruku, meaning consciousness that brings death. Now, it's not death in the sense of physical death, but death in the sense of ending cycles with bad fortune. Ori Buruku, it's Buruku. So when we engage in Ori Baruku, we need to return to our original state of being good and blessed people. We do that through the discipline of Iwa Pele. Now, Iwa Pele is described in the Odu Ogbe Otur. It's very clear. There's like 5 rules for engaging in Iwa Pele. They're very clear, very specific. They seem easy, but most people find them very difficult. The first rule of Iwa Pele is make no judgment. And the way most people interpret making no judgment is, well, I know Ifa says make no judgment, but Fa'al Local really is a butthead and I need to warn people. No, that's not what the Odu says. The Odu says make no judgment. And the reason we make no judgment is Once you make a judgment, once you criticize a person, once you demean them in any way, you make an enemy for life. And IFA is about building community, building character, building resources, building the ability to understand and work with each other, and primarily building the context to make for effective collective prayer. All right. If I pray, I have a certain amount of ashe. That may be impressive or not, but if you and I pray, yeah, it's not twice as good, it's 3 times as good. We get 16 people in here, it's 100 times as good, and that collective prayer has the ability to change reality as we speak. Creation is co-creation, and in IFA, they call that Laranipin, meaning the ability of the eyes to transform light waves into particles, creating the physical world that we live in. You know, there's a huge dose of quantum physics in the liturgical language of IFA, and so that becomes an important part of our understanding of IFA. So make no judgment, very important. We can disagree, we can make boundaries, we can make disagree and still be friends. That's the point. Now, we've been taught the opposite of that in Trump's America, but I'm not accepting that at all. I can disagree with you, and you can think I'm crazy, and we can still be friends. That's the way life should work, in my humble opinion. So rule number 2, and this is especially important for diviners that do counseling for people, take nothing personally. If a person is struggling with an issue and you want to blame, and they want to blame someone else for their problems instead of taking responsibility for their problems, and you say, no, this problem can be fixed by you changing your attitude. If a person does not want to hear that, they're going to blame you for the issue. They're going to call you names. They're going to talk about you like you got a tail, and they'll never come and see you again. And they'll go on the internet and let everybody know that you don't know what you're talking about. And our response is to take nothing personally. That's fine. If you want to do that, go about your business. So rule number 3, speak with integrity. It's a little different than telling the truth. Speaking with integrity means there's a Yoruba proverb that says, speak with a heavy tongue. You don't have to tell everybody your business. Just because somebody asks you your business doesn't mean you have to tell them. It's that simple. But if a person has a right to know, then you have an obligation to be honest. And that's especially important because in our culture, what we learn is keep all your problems a secret, save face. Don't anybody know you're struggling with anything. As long as we do that, we're never going to solve any problem ever. You know, I've been doing divination to help people with problems for 40 years. And I can say every problem I've ever seen in those 40 years, I've seen in the first 6 months of my career as a diviner. I've seen nothing new since then. And people are really busy trying to hide their problems because they don't want me to think poorly of them. And the truth is, I don't. And the other truth is, if you're a diviner, you'll know that 90% of solving any problem is to accurately identify it. Once you've done that, the problem solves itself. But as long as you're blaming Sally for your problems and it's really you who's got the problem that needs to be fixed, you will never fix the problem. So as long as you want to blame Sally when you're the one who's responsible, you can kill goats until there's no more left to offer, and you're not going to fix the problem. All right. So that's speaking with integrity. The 4th issue is assume that people are doing the best they can. That kind of ties back into the first one. You know, people struggle. They make bad decisions. Hurt people. That's a key element in healing. If you've been abused physically, sexually, or verbally as a child, you're going to abuse your children the same way. That's just the way we're wired as human beings. IFA says we have a spiritual obligation to break those patterns. And the Odu IFA gives us real clear, specific, and unambiguous directions on how to do that. All right. Yeah, the last rule we're going to talk about today is no gossip. All right. So here's the definition of gossip. Gossip is talking bad about someone who's not present to defend themselves. And you cannot say, well, it's no gossip because it's true. Yes, it is if the person's not there. Every issue has more than one perspective. IFA says no gossip. If you try to gossip to an elder in traditional Yoruba culture, they will tell you, stop talking, bring the person here, and we'll talk about it. But I'm not going to listen to you complain about so-and-so without them here to present their side of the story. So you can compliment the person until your gums bleed, but no negative conversation about a person who's not ready and able to engage in a conversation about all of that. Yeah, you can go ahead and finish playing that video if you want.
Now, I do have a question. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I do have a question. We did talk about the origins of the Yoruba people. We talked about their origins in Egypt, the language, etc. Because you have like this whole thing of where did Ifa come from?
Okay, so the answer to that question is Ifa has two origin stories. What we call Yoruba culture, which is a fairly recent word. The word Yoruba is only maybe 200 years old at the most. But there's a group of people in southeast, what we now call Nigeria. Some of them were there forever. They were born there, they lived there, and some of them migrated there. The people that were there who consider themselves the original Yoruba people live in a place called Oyo. And the people who migrated from Egypt and who say they migrated from Egypt live in Ile-Ife. And so there's been a long history of trying to integrate those two cultures. In 1750 to 1850, there was a civil war between Ile-Ife and Oyo that was resolved by making the elders of Ile-Ife, the king of Ife, Ile-Ife, the owner of Ile-Ife is the spiritual leader of Yoruba culture, and the Alafin of Oyo is like the war chief or the war king or the secretary of defense. He's actually technically the head of Ogboni for traditional Yoruba culture. So we have, and the creation story for Oyo is different than the creation story for Ile-Ife, and that's significant as well. But both of those stories teach metaphysical lessons. And are only partially historically. That's a little complicated, but geologists tell us that the oldest land mass on Earth is the flattest land mass, right? So Nigeria has no mountains at all. If you've been there, there's no mountains, no mountains. That means it's one of the oldest pieces of land on Earth and there's plenty of historical documentation that some of the first people emerged from there. That information has been added to recently. And be clear, in what's now the Igbo region, when the British first came to Nigeria, what was the first thing they did? What was the first thing they did?
Burn down the temples?
Well, sort of, yeah, you're close. What they did is they blew up with dynamite the pyramids in Nigeria. Hello.
They had pyramids in Nigeria?
Yes, they did. And there's pictures of them. And the British won't say where they were. They won't tell you where the ruins are from when they blew them up with dynamite. They also had stupas. Do you know what a stupa is? A stupa is a popular meditation space in India that is based on mathematical formulas that define the structure of the universe. And the pyramids and the stupas are, at least in my opinion, 10,000 years old, probably a lot older. So the question is, why weren't you told that the Yoruba culture built pyramids, Igbo culture built pyramids? And the reason is because if you really look at the language of the liturgical Ifa, if you look at our oral scripture, the understanding of the liturgical scientific language gives you an understanding of how to generate free energy. It also gives you an understanding of alchemy from the word alchemet, meaning the light of the black soil on the Nile River in Egypt. Alchemy is a real science. It's not like the hippy-dippy view of, oh, it's to make you psychologically better. Okay, there's that element to it. But alchemy can literally change lead into gold. 90% of the gold found in Egypt is human-made. Think about that for a minute. And the Yorubas have the secret of alchemy. We know they have that secret because the staff of Oramion in Ile Ife has 123 iron nails pounded into it. That staff is probably 10,000 years old. It's thousands of years old in any case. And there's not any rust on an iron nail that's been out in the rain for thousands of years. That is only possible if you make those nails with an alchemical process that's clearly described in Odu Ifa, clearly described in texts on alchemy. And there's lots of evidence of nails that don't rust in India, which are described in India as being made through an alchemical process. So we have the ability to change lead and gold. That's why our faith is so denigrated. The few who control the many don't want you to know how to do that. It's not complicated. One day we'll have a class and I'll tell you how to do it. But the other thing that Odu Ifa indicates is how to access free energy, that's for sure. And also, I've seen Albos in Africa teleport. You know what teleport is? Disappear here and appear over there instantaneously, and also levitate. Those are things that are doable by human consciousness if you have training from an elder who knows how, and the details of how to do that are clearly coded into our sacred scripture, which, if you've seen the books on Odu Ifa available in America, 2-3 verses per Odu at the most, maybe. But in Africa, there's between 100 and 200 verses per Odu. So 99% of the wisdom in our sacred scripture is not available in English. So, there's a reason for that. And I think one of the reasons for that, one of the things that is definitely described in Odu Ifa is how you resurrect the dead. Every time an Awo dies, they lay in the temple, and on the third day after their death, they're resurrected, they speak to the community, and then they're interned. So we were taught that resurrection only happened once in the history of life on earth, and that makes Jesus Son of God. But I'm telling you, every Awo that dies in the traditional Yoruba Egbe is resurrected as part of their funeral rites. And so, that is a threat to certain people who, rather than talk about it, would rather denigrate us and our faith and what we believe. We need to stand up for what's true.
Can we go into the linguistics of it all? Because I talked about the fact that the Ifa priests were a part of the Nile Valley that came into Ile Ife. And I talk about that very often. It's like, we were a part of that Nile Valley civilization. And that those ancient mysteries that were in those schools of ancient Kemet, those universities, were just brought into that aspect of Nigeria. I tried to look it up on ChatGPT and AI, but they're like, oh no, there's no. But here, could you go into that, because that might be just a hidden thing they don't want us to know. But I swear to goodness,
listen, history lies, linguistics doesn't. Think about that for a principle. I can tell you anything I want about Egypt and who's the descendants of Abraham and yada, yada, yada. But linguistics does not lie. So if you analyze the Yoruba language, you'll see that 30% of it is called Coptic Egyptian. Coptic Egyptian is the language that was spoken in Egypt before the Common Era. Now the language of Egypt is Arabic, but in the old days, that was not what was spoken. They spoke Coptic. So 30% of the Yoruba language is Coptic Egyptian, and even that was mistranslated by a guy named Budge in England. If you want a good translation of Coptic Egyptian language, go to Laird Scranton. Laird Scranton figured out that the Dogons in Mali are speaking 100% Coptic Egyptian language, and he wrote a dictionary based on studying with them. So the best preserved Egyptian mysteries based on the preservation of Egyptian language and the preservation of Egyptian sacred script is survived by the Dogons in Mali. All right. So in the 70s, a man named Robert Temple went to Mali, and he studied with the Dogon people, and he realized that every 51 years they did a ritual, once every 51 years, that celebrated the elliptic cycle of a dog scar, meaning a black star, around the star Sirius, which is a major star in the astronomy of the planet Earth. So the thing that was amazing about that is that modern astronomers did not see that that second star and more recently than 100 years ago, and the Dogons have been doing that ritual for thousands of years. So Robert Temple asked the Dogons if they would initiate him and teach him their mysteries. The Dogons said, yes, we will initiate you only if you promise to share all our mysteries with the rest of the world. Notice I said share, not keep a secret. So Temple went to Mali, he got initiated, and he realized that the foundation of Dogon science, which is also the foundation of Egyptian science, which is also the foundation of IFA science, is what's called plasma physics. And so Temple realized that in order to explain the Dogon paleoscience or in theology, he needed to become a student of plasma physics. So he spent 30 years and became the world's foremost authority on plasma physics. And he recently wrote a book on plasma physics called The New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple. That book, I had to go back and retranslate a lot of what I thought I understood about Yoruba scripture based on that book. And here's what Temple says. He said in 1945, a man named David Bohm was working on the Manhattan Project, helping Robert Oppenheimer build an atom bomb along with Albert Einstein. Einstein and Oppenheimer told Bohm that they needed him to study plasma because they knew that when they exploded an atom bomb, it would create a plasma cloud, and they needed to understand it before they released it in the world, all right? So using a lot of experiments, a long story short, a lot of mathematical equations, David Bohm proved that plasma clouds were conscious. Let that sink in for a minute. So as soon as...
so a nuclear bomb is conscious. The actual cloud of a nuclear bomb is conscious.
Equivocally. And David Bohm not only said that, which anybody can say anything you want, but he proved it with a series of experiments, which I can explain in detail one day if you're interested. But the point is, after he explained his experiments and showed people why he said what he said, Oppenheimer turned to the 30 other physicists in the room and said, can anybody refute what he's saying? And nobody could. So Oppenheimer said, okay, we're just not going to talk about it. We're going to pretend it's not true. He called the FBI and had Oppenheimer deported and has never been a part of academia since then. But there's an implication for that concept, all right? Plasma clouds are conscious, all right? So here's what's important to know about that. 99% of the universe is plasma. Only 1% of creation is based on the structure of atoms, all right? Plasma clouds are essentially subatomic particles that have not coalesced to form atomic structure yet. So we live in a plasma universe, and the plasma clouds that surround us are conscious, all right? You understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah. So is that where you get antimatter versus matter?
Yeah, that's an element, but that's down the road. The important point to understand at this point in our conversation is if plasma clouds are conscious, that means in olden times, our elders called plasma clouds spirits.
If you were Yoruba speaking, you called a plasma cloud an orisha. You called them a rumale, an imole. Those are different types of clouds. So if you go back and if you look at the definitions and the meaning and the explanations of spirit and translate that into plasma science, you have an understanding of physics that is greater than the physics I was taught at some of the best science schools in the world. All right, so I stand by that unequivocally. I went to Caltech, which is where Einstein used to teach back in the day, and what I learned there was nowhere near as sophisticated or accurate, in my opinion, than the plasma science I learned from reading Odu IFA. So if you really understand what I'm saying, you'll understand that Odu IFA.
Wait, no, hold on. So that actually gets into how when they say the Orisha are the body, like Oshun is the circulatory system, Yemoya is the this.
Listen, we talked about this earlier. You're close, but no cigar. Let me explain that.
Okay.
The Ori generates plasma around the human body that we call the soul. In Yoruba, that's ME. So the ME is a plasma cloud. So listen, plasma cloud is influenced by the resonance of the 256 odus. You were taught that you had 6 senses. No, you have 256 senses, and each one of those streams information at a different frequency. And as our consciousness tunes into those different frequencies, we are able to access information outside of our experience. So there's 256 odus. Now, here's the thing to understand. All right, are you ready? Take a deep breath. We're going to back up. I'm going to say some stuff that's a little abstract, but we're going to get through it. Odu represent a 3-dimensional fundamental energy pattern called a Merkaba. A Merkaba is a torsion sphere with 2 counter-rotating 3-sided pyramids. Merkabas, Merkabah. So the Merkaba, the counter-rotation of the 2 3-sided pyramids, as explained exquisitely by Terence Howard, generates gravity. All right. But if you think about it, a 3-sided pyramid has 4 points of contact with the torsion sphere that holds it in place. 3 points of contact at the base and 1 at the apex. You with me? You understand?
Yeah, I do.
So each of those 4 points of contact with the sphere are represented in a 2-dimensional symbolic pattern by Odu Ifa. The marks of Odu, there's 4 of them. The right side represents the points of contact between the pyramid and the apex of the sphere facing north, and the other one faces south. So each point of contact with the sphere can be either opened or closed. If it's open, we make 1 mark on the tray. If it's closed, we make 2 marks on the tray. So the spinning of the subatomic particle known as a Merkaba allows energy, which we call Ashe, to come into the Merkaba, creating a different frequency based on a different energetic pattern. You with me? So we have 256 different frequencies, all of which shape the world. Every religious tradition you've ever heard of all starts with the idea in the beginning was the word. So the word in Ifa is the resonance of creation. That's 432 hertz. And the Odu that resonates with 432 hertz is called Ije Ogbe, which, if you translate it, is from the Legion Ije O Egbe, which means the first manifestation of the consciousness of everything, which is a synonym for God. And so in Ije Ogbe, there exists what's called quantum entanglement. So here's the thing to understand in terms of IFA science, which makes it all make sense. The only consciousness in creation is the consciousness of a God. In IFA, that's called Iponri. So every human being has an Ori, which is a personal consciousness, and everybody's connected to the higher self called Iponri. So there's billions and billions of Oris, but only one Iponri, and we're all connected to it. So think of think of everything in creation. This is according to IFA. Everything in creation has consciousness, and that consciousness comes from the invisible realm of Orun into the visible realm of IA, through geometric patterns. Geometric patterns is the portal that brings the consciousness of God into the physical world. And the patterns of Odu that we mark on the IFA tray, excuse me, is a two-dimensional coded reference to the three-dimensional energy pattern of Merkaba. And God speaks through those geometric patterns, even in their symbolic form. So an IFA priest learns to go into possession so that they can tap into those altered states generated by the marks of Odu themselves. Now, in EJ Ogre, you have all 8 portals open. And when all 8 portals are open at 432 hertz, we generate an expansion of our aura. In Yoruba, aura, the word for aura is imi, meaning I am. And that generation occurs at the pineal gland, which in Yoruba is Iwaju. So the Iwaju expands our aura, and our aura has the same laws of physics as a plasma cloud. So our plasma cloud of our aura is able to communicate with the resonance of the plasma clouds of 99% of the rest of the universe. And we do that by identifying a very small spectrum of that consciousness so our head doesn't blow up. And we access that for specific problem solution process. So IFA says every problem has a solution. And the solution to that problem is every Odu that comes to define the problem is solved by the opposite Odu. So that gives us instantaneous problem resolution consciousness if we understand those principles. And those principles are deeply rooted in what we could call plasma science, for lack of a better word. But what Temple discovered and figured out, in which I tip my hat to him for it, the Earth has 2 plasma clouds, one to the right, one to the left. They're each 9 times bigger than the plasma cloud. They're each 9 times bigger than the Earth itself. So one of the plasma clouds records every thought every living thing has had on Earth from the beginning of the creation of the Earth. That's the function of one conscious plasma cloud. The other plasma cloud uses that information to alter DNA to create a better way to live on Earth. So what do we call that in Odu Ifa? The plasma cloud that records everything, we call it Obatala. The one that alters DNA, we call it Yemu. And so the relationship between Obatala and Yemu is what creates evolution. So we have words to describe a deeply esoteric scientific process, but we have something. Now plasma physics is kind of the hot topic among alternative science these days, largely populated by my white guy brothers in academia who just don't get it. And here's what they don't get. And this is why IFA is so important. Plasma has consciousness. Yes, absolutely. And IFA has the key to how we communicate with plasma. It's a two-way street. Once you talk to plasma, and once you affect plasma, and once you use your intention to use the structure of plasma to solve problems, you are co-creating the universe. IFA calls that Ile Ife Oronwaye, the unconditional love of the invisible realm comes to earth. All right. So the word Oron, People call that heaven. That's not what Orun means. The word Orun in Yoruba means neck, this thing, neck. The concept of Orun is the connection between the visible and the invisible realm. And it's in that connection that consciousness becomes manifest in the physical world. I don't know. You have any questions?
Right. So when you're talking about plasma science and when all this stuff, so is that really pretty much saying that you control what happens to you in your life based on your thoughts alone?
Yes. And what it also says is that the process of a bow has nothing to do with goat blood. That's the silliest idea I've ever heard. We kill goats to feed the awos who pray on our behalf, and the prayer that they're offering is to engage plasma consciousness by entering what I call an EJ Ogbe state of consciousness, where all 8 portals of the Merkaba that surrounds their aura is open, so that their emotional resonance vibrates at the level of the solution to the problem, which then is absorbed by the client, who then uses that vibration to attract good fortune. It's got nothing to do with so in a sense, if you think about it,
so technically, instead of like using blood, we should be using like the herbs and E-Way.
No, listen to me. We use this. This is the source of transformation during Ebo, pure consciousness. We can use anything. We can use popcorn. We can use doilies. It's just stuff to keep our hands busy. The real work is being done by entering the altered state known as EJ Ogbe and holding the intention of transformation. Listen, if you have 16 people in an EJ Ogbe state praying for your health, it's impossible for you to maintain being sick. You can't do it. That's the nature of reality. Until we understand that, until we engage in that, until we do that, until we manifest that, we're just using IFA as a form of drama and not the great sacred wisdom that it really represents and the great blessing from our ancestors. Our ancestors 10,000 years ago knew we were going to be going through this nightmare in Washington from the guy with the orange hair. And they gave us the keys to survive that nightmare. And what they did is they allowed us to understand those hodus. And the way they did that is they downloaded information from the spirit realm, from the ancestral realm, and gave it to specific people so that we go back and look at the scripture that they created and truly understand in English is what they're saying, what they meant, and how they're trying to help us. And I'm telling you, much of that information was given to a man named Terrence Howard, who used to be an actor and who is now really a prophetic voice for IFA. Every concept that he's shared with the world, and I've read his book in depth and understand his concepts, and I have to say every idea he's expressed has an equivalent in Odu IFA. So we need to study him. We need to study our scripture. We need to stop arguing over nonsense and get down to the business of figuring out how to apply that wisdom to solve real problems in the real world.
You know, that's why I was going to start like trying to do like the Odu live and say, well, you know, I only just know how to do Dilagoon, you know, but this bring the Odu out and say, okay, what is the Odu? What is, just to be able to explain to people like how this whole thing works, like the actual mathematical aspect of it, because people like they see tarot, they see people using the pendulum, and they think that is the same thing as E5. No, can you just explain that there's a big difference? What the difference?
Yeah, let me tell you how Odu is taught in traditional Yoruba culture. Get the students together, sit down. The elder marks an Odu. He chants the resonance of that Odu so the students can feel it, and then he does what's called close the Odu. He puts all the erosion from the tray in the little mound in the center of the tray. He sprinkles a little bit in a glass of water and has each person drink it, at which point they become possessed by the Odu itself and understand what it feels like, because entering that state of feeling is what causes the transformation. Let me give you an easy example. If you've ever been to a Native American rainmaking ceremony, The shaman goes to the top of the mountain, draws a circle, sits in the circle, puts his hands out like this, and remembers what it feels like to have rain hit his body. And that remembering causes the rain to come. It's a matter of entering a altered state that holds a frequency that causes a particular thing to happen. That's where the magic, that's where the power, that's where the healing, that's where the elevation, that's where the clarity, that's where the instruction, that's where the innovation, that's where the evolution contained in Odu Ifa becomes manifest. All right, it's the same way I'll tell you the secret of initiation. The purpose of initiation is to put the person into an altered state. Now, I've done over 1,000 initiations easily, and people come and I tell them I'm going to put them in an altered state, and they look at me like, well, that's strange. But the reason I know how to do it is because I was taught the secret in Africa. The secret is real simple. If I want to put you in an altered state of consciousness, I go into that state first and get close enough to you so that you can feel the ashe. And that ashe is contagious, and it'll transform where you're at in the moment to the place that you want to go.
Well, you know what? I can say that I have experienced that in initiation, to where I like look. I was like, I for 1 second I seen the glimpse that I was in another place. I was like, what? And then it came. Then I was back to normal. But I looked around me and I was in like another location.
Yes, and that's the point of initiation, and you were blessed to enter it. But I'm saying not everybody understands that, and not all initiations are effective. Listen, there's a lot of talk about doing initiations correctly. That's an absolutely bogus, irrelevant, and I could care less conversation. I've been to Africa. I've seen initiation done literally hundreds of different ways. And the thing that makes that okay is that they were all effective. So the only question is not was it done right, but what was it done effective? And so what determines if it was done effective is if the Yawol goes into an altered state and becomes a medium for that frequency that we call Orisha.
Well, I can tell you, I definitely experienced it. It was interesting. It was crazy, but yeah, I was like, wow. And there's no drugs involved. They didn't give me like no ayahuasca or nothing like that. But whatever the songs they sang, the chanting they did, the entire thing, it definitely brings you out of like your body into a different thing, at least for a second, So.
Yes, but it's supposed to bring you into longer in a second. And it's supposed to be, after initiation, the discipline of daily prayer and Reiki allows you to enter that altered state when it's necessary and to have some control over it. That's the point of IFA spiritual discipline, to be able to go into possession whenever we feel we need to. And we do that through singing a Reiki. So, for example, people say, there is no IFA priests don't go into possession. That's wrong. The Odu Ogunda Osa has the Ariki for putting the IFA priest into possession. We wouldn't have that Ariki if that wasn't something we do. I'll speak the Ariki and then I'll sing it. You'll see how the resonance affects our consciousness. The
sound.
Yes, if you just read it, it's Ela Omosin Moerio, but if you sing it, it's Ela Omosin Ela Omo O Yigi O Tami O. So that Ariki goes on for 2 hours. And it creates an altered state of consciousness. And it's a wondrous experience. It's really loving, beautiful, transcendent, and deeply, deeply healing.
So what really this is about sound resonance. And what is like go into sound resonance and how important that is in the IFA.
Resonance creates reality. There's let me explain it this way. You know what a light wave is? Like a series of W's?
Yeah.
Okay. So a light wave, depending on the frequency, which means the space of time between the up and down of the wave, generates color, generates sound, generates color, and at a certain point when the frequency collapses in on itself, it creates physical reality. All right. So the light wave in IFA we call Ashe. The physical reality created by Ashe we call E-ray, or good fortune, or manifestation, right? So Elah, or 432 hertz, is not a light wave. It's a longitudinal light beam. So what that means is it's a beam of light without any waves. That's what scientists these days call 0-point energy, or free energy. So when you generate 432 hertz in the Odu EJ Ogbe, the longitudinal light beam projects out of your consciousness until it hits the edge of the universe and then comes back. And it's a function of the science of that beam that it gets stronger the further away it moves from source. You understand? So that phenomenon explains quantum entanglement. It explains a lot of the paranormal phenomena. And if you understand, here's the thought I think I'm going to leave you with for today. Elah is a shapeshifter. That means when you're in possession with Elah, you can say an Ariki and move from Elah to any of the Orishas. But that's a fundamental truth about reality. If I can do that, that means a plasma cloud can do that. So all the paranormal phenomena you see, when the Virgin Mary shows up, when ET shows up, when interdimensional beings show up, when Grandpa shows up, that's all the expression of resonance generated by a plasma cloud we call spirit. And that rather than, there may be some ETs that are from a different planet, but for the most part, they're generated by plasma interaction here on the Earth itself. And so communities come together and create plasma clouds that they name the Risha, right? So here's the thing to understand. If you're part of an egg bay that's involved in drug smuggling, gun dealing, prostitution, child sexual slavery, and that's the consciousness of the group, when you come together and invoke Oshun, the Oshun that comes is not the same Oshun that is invoked in the community that honors good character and unconditional love. You may use the same name to describe it, but the energetic and the resonance effect of those prayers are different. And until we come to understand that, we're going to be perpetuating a level of negativity that is not serving us well.
So I want one last question. I want to ask you.
How about if I'll give you 3 questions, then I gotta go.
Okay, so one last question. So when we talk about a group solution, why is it that why are we Black people in a certain or white people in a certain situation? Like my answer is because IFA is an individual solution for individuals, and then as a community, and then as a microcosm versus macrocosm. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in a sense, that's true.
If you work on yourself, then because if everything is really based on your consciousness, then when you are conscious, the things around you change. Really, you change the way you look at things. The things you look at will change.
And the only way that prayer is effective is if the people that come together to pray root their prayers in good character, and if they have focused their attention on the same thing. If you get 12 people coming together to pray for your health, and one of them thinks, "Oh, well, you don't deserve to be healthy. I don't like you, and you made Google eyes at my husband." That one person is going to destroy the effect of all the positive thoughts from the other people. So yeah, you have to do your stuff. And we get our stuff together. We call that looking at our Odu for the day. And then every 16 days, we get together with our egg bay and make sure our egg bay is all on the same page. And then every 91 days, we get together with the community and make sure the community is all on the same page so that we can effectively use prayer to alter physical reality and create a better way to get through the day. Ire Ashe To, I thank you for this conversation. We'll talk again. I think we have a lot of blessings from our IFA ancestors. We just need to stop arguing and figure out what they're trying to tell us.
Well, you know what? That was beautiful. I thank you so much, Baba, for your time. This was great. You know, I was playing a video, but hey, you know, I didn't need to. Thank you for that. And we'll be bringing you back on hopefully regularly to like really break this whole thing down from little by little. You know, you can't just shove a whole cake in someone's face. You know, but bit by bit, people will begin to understand.
Listen, very soon I'm doing an 8-part course on all the systems of divination used in IFA Orisha. It's our job as Awo to know all 6 of those systems of divination. I will teach them in depth. It's an 8-week course. There's no charge. I'm going to record it. You can feel free to play them on your channel. And once people have gone through the divination course, I'm giving a 24-part course on how to do IFA ritual. There is a charge for that, but it'll be reasonable.
Why is it important for divination to happen? So let's just go into that. Why should everybody have some level of a divination method?
You'll understand as soon as I explain that divination in traditional Yoruba culture is never go to one person. It's always a communal effort. So what divination is sitting down in front of a dozen of your elders and saying, I've got this problem, and listening to the collective wisdom of their life experience. If you ever go to someone who claims to be an IFA priest and they're reading you and they're sitting alone on the mat, be clear they have no idea about what they're doing or the tradition they're a part of.
So it's just so everybody. So it's a community of priests. That's what I've always said, is that this was meant to be a community of priests, not just a singular person that is uplifted, and then that person gets to like read everybody.
Let me give you an example. The first graphic was. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it kind of went down. Go just start from scratch.
Yes. 40 years ago, I was part of an ELA in Oakland, California, that was run by Louisa Tish. She is a very good healer for people that suffered from childhood sexual abuse. That ELA had 200 women of color who were mostly incest survivors. And, you know, what did I have to tell them that would help them? The answer is nothing. The IFA teaches that whatever we fix in our life becomes medicine for someone else. That's why AA works, the voice of authority. Alcoholics get together and share their experience of how they quit drinking. So, you know, women got together who suffered some horrendous abuse as children and discussed how they dealt with it. That was the whole starting point for the ELA in Oakland. So my job was very simple, to hold what it looked like for a man to walk in a community with integrity, without being without chasing skirts, without doing inappropriate things or saying inappropriate things, and to make the gathering of those women a safe place for them to explore their wounds and get guidance for help. And so, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. That's what it means. It takes a village to heal a wound. It takes a village to guide people towards maturity. It takes a village to guide a person through puberty rites. You know, initiation is the least important of the ceremonies we do. Naming ceremony, puberty rite, relationship ritual, becoming an elder, funeral, those are the important rituals in the life of human beings. Initiation just gives us our skills so we can find ourselves, we can find our place in the communal process of doing those more important rituals. And, you know, we've lost sight of that, in my humble opinion.
So I'm hearing one last question.
Sure.
If people say, who is this white guy telling us in African tradition anything, right? What is your thoughts on that? Because I don't care about color, but I'm gonna say this. People say, "Well, this is a white guy." Right? What do you come from the ancestors and explain what comes to you in that?
Well, generally, I don't address that. If you don't think I can understand IFA, that's who am I to say you're wrong? But from my point of view, it's really simple. There are 26 dragon families in Transylvania. My ancestry is Transylvanian. I'm one of those 26 dragon families. We trace our ancestry back to the wife of the Pharaoh Shikmet. And so my family has clearly Egyptian origins. I'll tell you a little secret if you haven't noticed. If you look on the map, you'll see that Egypt is in Africa, right? So the issue is not that I'm not African. The issue is that I don't look African. And my question is, how significant is that? And my answer is not much. So, I have the right to claim my own ancestry. I have the right to claim my own DNA, my own link to Africa. A lot of people don't like it. A lot don't agree with it, don't think it's valid. But I got nothing to say about that other than it has helped me understand who I am and where I function best in the world.
Well, I appreciate you so much, Baba. I appreciate your wisdom. I mean, the plasma information alone, wow, I'm blown away. So people can say what they want to say, but knowledge is knowledge, wisdom is wisdom. It's not about like who brings it's about, did you hear the message though? So thank you so much.
But listen, last word I want to say, don't take my word for it. I mean, who cares what I think? Do your own research. I've given you the names of books, list those books, read it, we'll get together and we'll talk. You might have a different interpretation of the things that I've studied. We can talk about that and we can make our points. We can provide our evidence. If I talk to you and we disagree, I get a great value from that. You know what that value is I get from disagreeing with you? I get a better understanding of who you are.
Sure.
So
right. And every Baba that you're in your 80s, right? And every Baba Lao like that I've talked to on my channel will say the same thing. Don't take it from me. Because even when you're doing an IFA reading, it's like, you know what? I don't know. IFA knows. I don't know. This is what came out. That's the difference between a lot of the stuff is that it comes out and that's the number and that's it. And it's final. That's it. So
I keep saying the last. I do want to say one more thing.
I'll say one more thing.
I'm a stickler for language. I have never called myself a Balbalao. I never will, and I'll tell you why. In traditional Yoruba culture, they say there was one Babalao and his name was Oromila. And with that, I'm going to call it a night. Stay safe. We'll talk again.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's build. At 5:30 when we're coming back, I'm going to be talking to Naphtali, and we're going to be discussing it with the Hebrew Israelite. She has some questions about E5. So give us about like maybe an hour and we're going to be coming back. But, it was interesting. So I've been talking politics, but you know what? Things sometimes just suddenly change for me where this is what I'm going to be doing. So if my audience just get used to it, I've been a priest of Oya this entire time, even though I've been talking about Trump and ICE and this, that, the other, but I've been called to do this work. So my direction has drastically changed into this. So I hope that you guys work with me. Shouts out much.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. That's right. Only you can make the change. Shake your head at you. Shine so bright from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your